This man has won the World Motocross Championship 3 years in a row. When he first visited the United States in 1968, most people had not even heard of motocross, let alone his name. It is partly because of his unique ability as a professional racer of international renown, a gentleman and compassionate human being, that the sport of motocross in this country has exploded beyond all expectations. He has won almost every award of his sport, including Sportsman of the Year over all sports in his native Belgium. He has been called the only real folk hero of motorcycling. This man is Roger DeCoster. Motocross is one of the most physically demanding of all sports. Roger DeCoster is consistently its most successful athlete. At 30 years old, Roger is a veteran of over a decade of professional racing, during which time he has won countless races, national and international titles. Motocross, which for years has been a major spectator sport in Europe, is now one of the fastest growing of all American sports, due largely to people like Roger.
DeCoster side by side with Mako-mounted Hans Meisch from West Germany, with DeCoster holding and squeezing by on the inside line, both followed by Ben Aberg, the former world champion from Sweden on the Bultaco. This is the 7th of the 9-event series of races for the Trans-AMA title, and this circuit at Puyallup, Washington, standing in the dismal shadow of Mount Rainier, is really going to put these riders to the test. It's been continuously raining here for 3 solid days, something I don't have to tell the 11,000 of you that turned out today. Look out for number 69, Roger DeCoster of Belgium, the current series leader with wins to date at Ontario, Canada, Unadilla, New York, Road, Atlanta, Georgia, and Lake Whitney, Texas. The last place in conditions very similar to today, miserable.
What can you say about an athlete who's been world champion for 3 straight years? First and foremost, DeCoster is a professional. He could have been a doctor or a truck driver, and he still would have maintained a professional attitude. As Merv Wright, the racing manager for Roger's American sponsors, illustrates.
Off the racetrack, he's somewhat unusual for a motorcycle racer, particularly in view of the fact that he's a world champion. He's just completely unaffected by it all. Many riders who have done less than 1/100th of the things that Roger's done seem to have a very big opinion of themselves, but Roger, despite being 3 times champion, is just a typical guy, just a super nice guy to be around, incredibly cooperative, more so again than lesser riders, and anything we ask him to do, he does it.
Motocross is an out-and-out race that demands exceptional physical endurance from both rider and machine. In one event, a rider will compete in 2 heats, or motos, each of around 45 minutes duration. The winner is determined as a result of both motos. Thus, 2 second-place finishes would be better than a first and a fourth. A rider must be consistent and fast. Races are generally held whatever the weather. In fact, the more inclement the weather, often the more interesting it is to watch. And not every race is straightforward, even for a champion. In fact, some of the problems can be downright upsetting.
Roger, what happened out there?
With the mud and the sand, the front brake, the cam started locking up. And each time my front wheel would come off the ground, it was stopped, and it came back on the ground. So I would come on the ground and always go left or right. And I thought it was going to clean out, but it got worse and worse. And then I crashed because on the big jump it was completely locked and when I landed. And so I got up and kept riding, and then it got worse and worse again. And I had to stop and really work on it and kick it with my foot, and I got it finally loose and untighten it, and then I catched a few places back up again.
Okay, thank you. Better go before you catch cold. Thank you.
Roger won the second moto convincingly, leaving no doubt in the minds of the 11,000 spectators that he is the champion. With a 5th in the first unfortunate moto and a win in the second, Roger got 2nd overall for the day. In the last 3 years of contesting all the very competitive World Grand Prix events, Roger never fell off once, making the Puyallup sand and mud even more conspicuous.
What was that second heat like?
A lot of problems, but still finished 2nd overall with all the problems I've had today. I think I can be very happy. It was not riding, it was just hard work.
Whenever there's a champion, you can bet there's a rider wearing number 2 that's just waiting for his chance. Roger de Coster was born in a village near Brussels, Belgium on August 28, 1944. His early interest in motorcycle racing started by watching motocross and observed trials events that were held close to his home. A checkpoint for one of the trials was located next door to the de Coster household, and after the event, the kids from the village would do the same thing on bicycles. Roger's motocross career started with a 50cc machine which he would ride to the event, race it, and then ride it back home. After early successes on the small bike, it was replaced by a 500cc machine, and in his first year on that bike, he won almost every race in his class in the Belgian Championship. Roger improved and kept winning until a serious accident in 1966 almost ended his racing career. In 1967, he competed in the 500cc class of the World Championship Series and finished 5th at his first attempt. With consistent placings in the World Championship through 1970, his efforts were rewarded with a contract to ride for Suzuki. Roger returned their confidence by giving them their first 500cc Grand Prix win and their first 500cc World Championship in 1971. He repeated the successes by winning the title again in 72 and 73, thereby becoming one of only 2 people ever to win 3 consecutive 500cc World Championship titles. He lives now in Tremelo, a small town of 7,000 people some 30 kilometers from Brussels, where he spends his time gardening and caring for the deer that run in their own compound.
In the beginning, my parents didn't like the idea of racing because I think they thought it was too dangerous and they wanted me to finish school. So, to finish school earlier, I went to school in daytime and again in evening, and so I would not have to stop racing. The days of school I would work in a motorcycle shop to make some money to be able to buy parts for my bike. When I started winning races, my father showed more interest in it. I think they did not really like it, but still, he helped me the best he could.
In 1966, Roger suffered the only real setback to his career, a racing accident where the bike fell heavily upon his back, splitting a kidney all along its length. Several doctors were consulted, none of whom thought the kidney could be saved, but Roger knew if they removed it, he would never race again.
We went to another specialist in France who thought there was a small chance we could save it. After 8 days after the operation, the kidney started working again, and it got better and better.
This was a time of great concern for his parents. Mr. de Coster said that after the initial fear of permanent injury had passed, his other concern was that Roger be fit enough to again become the champion. If his son was to race, then he wanted him to be able to do his best and be successful and not have to compete with a handicap. Fortunately, Roger recovered completely and began racing again the following year. One of the proudest moments for his parents came when Roger was voted Sportsman of the Year for the whole of Belgium, a very prestigious award that is presented by King Baudouin of Belgium. During one of his many races in the United States, Roger met Laurie, a California girl who was later to become his wife. It was 1969, and Laurie was doing some public relations work to promote a race in Phoenix, Arizona. Roger and his traveling compatriot, British 250cc champion Dave Bickers, were asked to go to Phoenix to a press conference. Roger couldn't go, so Davey went alone. The day after, Dave called Roger and said that he'd met a nice girl here who wanted to talk to him.
It was Laurie on the phone. Laurie said, "Do you remember me from this place or that?" And I said, "Oh, not too well, but yes, I do."
But they were playing a joke on Roger.
They told me to go up there and meet this nice girl. So I took the car and drove 7 hours to Phoenix. When I arrived, only David was there. He knew I was not going to be too happy about the joke, and he was a little bit nervous about it. So he invited me to go out for dinner. "Come, let's have something to eat. She will be back later," she said.
But it was just a joke, and by that time, Laurie was back in Santa Barbara where she lived.
On Sunday, at the race, I was walking through the pits when I saw this nice girl and said to myself, oh, that must be the girl that told me. It was just a feeling that I had about her. So I went to ask her, and she said, yes, it was me. We talked a bit, and I asked her out for dinner.
4 years later, in November 1973, Laurie became Mrs. Roger DeCoster.
I always liked California girls. The sun, the blonde hair, warm weather. Seems that they make them always even nicer.
Roger races so often during the season that riding by itself keeps him in good condition. He doesn't believe in regulating his body like a machine. He will exercise and work out when he feels that he needs it, by running or riding a bicycle.
You either got it or you haven't, and Roger's so determined when he's on a bike to do well, and you know, he'd keep himself in good condition and everything. And he's lucky. You got to be lucky to be a champion.
Carnegie Cycle Park, Livermore, California, and the last but one race in the Trans-AMA Series. It is here and at Saddleback Park next week that the title of Trans-AMA champion will be decided. At this point, Roger DeCoster is the points leader.
If you've ever watched him at a race that he starts very bad in, he'll stay there for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, you know, without taking any chances at all. And then you'll see him at the last part of the race go very fast, much faster than anyone else on the track. And you can see it.
Jim Pomeroy is one of only two young American riders that have been campaigning the World Championship trail in Europe. The other is Brad Lackey, who considers Roger a personal friend.
I think he's maybe the best motocross rider in the world up to date, you know. He's about the best public image for motocross the world champion's ever been, you know. He really goes out and he really puts on, you know, just really helps motocross a lot the way he presents himself to the public.
There are so many qualities that a rider must have to become a world champion, and then be equally consistent to repeat the achievement for 3 straight years. Gerrit Wilsing from Holland is Roger's teammate, a friend, and a contender for his title.
It's so difficult to tell why somebody is world champion, but he's just world champion because he has everything what you need for a world champion. That's the physical endurance, it's your riding skill, it's your determination. He can accommodate to the different situations. To sunshine, to stones, to snow, to rain. He can do everything, and he can do everything with his bike.
Roger is doing battle each and every week with 40 or 50 racers, any one of whom would give their eye teeth to finish ahead of him, even if only in one race.
Laurie, what goes through your mind as you sit and watch?
I wonder what he's thinking. I watch his lines, I watch his movements. Sometimes I hold my breath, not knowing what would happen if his bike will break or if he will get in an accident. But most of all, I think about him winning.
Winning is something that Roger does with alarming regularity. After a bad start in the first moto and riding through dust with almost zero visibility, he finished 6th. In the second moto, there was no doubt. A clear-cut first place gave him overall victory for the event.
He never gives up. He doesn't take anything for granted, and if it's muddy or if... I never heard Roger complain. Many riders, they kind of bitch about everything. You know, either the sun is too hot or it's not sunny enough or it's raining too much or it isn't raining at all. I never heard that man complain. He just do the job and he keeps his pace and you know, he doesn't worry about what happens on the first 2-3 laps. He learned one thing that I think is very important to the racer. What counts is when the checkered flags goes down.
Oh, it was very bad. You know, like you have seen the dust and so promoter decided to change the track and to dig it up. They have always a tendency in America to make the tracks, to want to make it smoother. There's a couple of bumps in the track, they want to take it away and make it like a TT. And what they did is they digged about 4 or 5 inches into the ground, into the soil, and brought up all the dust, you know, all the dry pad of the track. That made it very bad to ride on. Also, there was a bunch of lumps of soil that were as hard as stones, and that was why so many guys got in trouble today. That was also why I got such a bad first heat. It was very easy to make mistakes. You had to go very carefully and just, you know, ride as fast as you can see, no more. And that's what I did, and I came out good.
Thailand seiner Weltmeisterschaft ist sein eigener Wille und sein.
He's honest and he's determined.
Inbjudningstävling så går han in för tävlingen väldigt hårt.
That's what makes him world champion, I think.
Talentiert som
The top
motocrossfahrer.
rider in motocross in the world.
He is så god man and good friend von mir und blir good Charakter und das immer red was.
Roger just gets up race day with the thought in his mind that he's just going to go out there and do it to them, and I think if he ever got up with any other thought in his mind, he'd probably just roll over and go back to sleep. He's just 100% determined. He just never gives up trying.
I think that you find him alone a lot before a big race, mostly because he needs the privacy and time to think about what's going to happen, about his bike, about just the whole thing into racing, you know. And I think being around a lot of people, that sort of muddles up your mind. But I don't think he's really so different than a lot of people. Probably people say that because when they see him at the races, he's always thinking, you know. And you don't need to talk a lot to do that.
California on the factory Yamaha. Number 4 from Hacienda Heights, California, Gary Jones on the factory Can-Am. Number 3 from Cerritos, California, Rich Thorwaldsen on the factory Suzuki. Number 69, Roger DeCoster from Belgium on the factory Suzuki. All lined up for the first international moto today at Saddleback Park and the final event for this year's Trans AMA Trophy. And they're off. And wow, what a near miss. Wolfing almost ran DeCoster into the fence right at the start.
Rolf Tivlin was a world champion when Roger started racing, and he watched DeCoster's career and his riding style almost from the beginning.
He is almost perfect. Now, Roger DeCoster, he does everything so nice and so neat, and this is the reason I think he really likes to race. He's racing every weekend, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and he don't get tired of it, because he does everything right, so he's not super tired after a race. He rides to maybe he don't go over 85% of his capacity, so he has always 10-15% left. All these other riders are exhausted. They're tired, they can't hardly talk after a race, and Roger is smiling. And that takes many years of training.
Training, dedication, consistency, stickability, and a goodly helping of natural talent.
running engine that slowed DeCoster and kept him in third place in the first moto. Roger told me during the break between motos that to have gone faster would have risked seizing or blowing up the engine. That would have ruined any chance for an overall win today. But the second moto has started with a battle that will produce fireworks. DeCoster and his old rival, number 8, eat off wheel. And he's passed him. DeCoster passed wheel in midair coming off.
I think it was on lap 3. I passed him in a jump in the lower part of the court. He stayed there for a lap, and then Pomeroy was getting close to him behind, and then he looped it out. One of the short straightaways, he just turned over. I think the problem was also he was a little bit off his concentration also, because it was the last race and he knew he could not win the series anymore. And you know, that's the dangerous part of racing, is when you start relaxing too much. You know, when you've not your full concentration and you go almost the same speed, but then you make a little mistake, sometimes very expensive.
What kind of advice would you give to young American motocross riders?
That's very difficult to give a general advice, but one thing that a very big percentage of Americans need to do is learn more about their bike and work on their bike themselves, not let it down to a mechanic or to some friend or their father or so on. You know, most of the kids here don't know anything about their bike, even some very good riders, and they would do better results if they would know more about their bikes.
All right, coming up to take the checkered flag, the overall winner of the 9-race Trans-AMA Series with a total of 900 points from a possible 1,200, number 69,
Roger won the second moto so convincingly that he finished almost half a lap ahead of the second-place rider.
Roger DeCoster for Suzuki.
I think it is important that people do at least one kind of sport. It makes you much more secure about yourself. It is easier not to get mad at other people. If someone can spend his energy in a sport, I don't care which kind of competition, like once a week, I think it would help everyone in general. Everyone needs to prove himself at something. If you do it in a sport, I think there would not be so many people who want to make war.